The Las Vegas Raiders just wrapped up OTAs, but what's brewing behind the scenes feels a lot bigger than a few practices reps. This isn't your typical slow off-season update. Something shifted inside that facility. The energy, the effort, the urgency all feels different. And the players? Some of them walked out of OTAs with their entire future changed. Others? They're suddenly hanging by a thread. What nobody's talking about is how fast this coaching staff is making real decisions. Spots are being won and lost before a single preseason snap. If you think OTAs don't matter, this Raiders roster might change your mind. The Raiders held their final OTA practice on the 5th of June, just days before mandatory minicamp opens on the 10th of June. That timeline matters, because what happened during these workouts wasn't just about conditioning. It was about proving you belong. And with 91 players fighting for only 53 jobs, every rep became a statement. That's why this isn't just another winners and losers list. It's a look at who might be shaping the identity of this team in real time, because while the rest of the league is easing into the summer, the Raiders are sharpening the edges of something much more dangerous. And now the spotlight shifts to the players who made the biggest noise on offense. Not just because they looked good in shorts, but because they're forcing the coaching staff to rethink depth charts, snap counts, and who this system should be built around. These names didn't just show up, they showed out. And some of them might be on the verge of becoming stars if this momentum carries forward. Let's start with the ones who just rewrote the script during OTAs. But before we get into that, hit that like and subscribe button for more Raiders and all the NFL content. Let's aim for 500 likes on this video. What happened on the Raiders practice field this spring could quietly reshape the entire offense. While most fans focused on quarterback talk, a handful of skill players were stealing the spotlight and the trust of the coaching staff. These weren't just routine flashes. They were performances that changed expectations. One name in particular, Ashton Jeanty, walked into OTAs carrying the pressure of being a first-round pick. He didn't flinch. Coaches were calling him humble, teammates called him different, and behind closed doors, it's clear the offense is already being built around him. He's not just fast as fearless, and that's what separates him from every other back on the roster. But Jeanty wasn't the only one raising eyebrows. Rookie wideout Dante Thornton Jr. turned heads with more than just speed. His route running was cleaner than advertised, his confidence was real, and his connection with the quarterbacks grew fast. Coming from Tennessee's high-tempo system, some doubted if his game would translate. It has and then some, and just behind him, Trey Tucker didn't waste a single rep. He played like a man with something to prove, staying locked in on every drill, shadowing Geno Smith, and even showing flashes of blocking grit that caught his coaches off guard. He looked faster, sharper, and hungrier than anyone expected. Then there's Michael Mayer, who reminded everyone that the Raiders don't just have one elite tight end. With Brock Bowers grabbing headlines, Mayer quietly carved out his own spotlight. His chemistry with Chip Kelly's scheme is starting to show. And while the public might be sleeping on the two tight end approach, this staff isn't. What's clear is, if you thought you knew what the Raiders' offense was going to look like, think again. And now that these names are making noise, all eyes shift to the man leading this unit, Geno Smith. What's really happening behind the scenes with him might surprise you. The most watched position in football just got even more complicated in Las Vegas, but for all the right reasons. Geno Smith didn't just show up to camp ready, he showed up like a veteran on a mission. From the first day of OTAs, the tempo shifted when he took the field. Every throw had purpose, every command in the huddle carried weight. This isn't just about arm strength or mobility anymore. It's about leadership. Coaches aren't just praising Geno for his play, they're praising him for the tone he's setting. When teammates describe him as a pro's pro, it's not just locker room talk. It's a warning to every other QB on the depth chart. There were moments during drills where Smith looked almost surgical. Not perfect, but precise. He wasn't just managing the offense, he was shaping it. And with Chip Kelly putting in a new system, that control matters more than ever. Aiden O'Connell still has fans in the building, and Cam Miller brings intriguing tools, but neither is pushing Geno off the throne right now. In fact, if anything, the gap may have widened. It's not just that Smith has the edge, it's that he's owning every snap like the job already belongs to him. But here's what makes this quarterback storyline even more intriguing. The Raiders aren't simply handing Geno the job, they're watching how he responds to expectations. And so far, he's meeting every challenge head-on. His timing is sharper, his reads are quicker, and his connection with the offensive line is improving fast. This is no longer a transitional experiment. It's becoming a foundation. And as Smith tightens his grip on QB1, the ripple effects are already being felt, especially on the other side of the ball, where several defenders are starting to respond with intensity of their own. The competition is rising, and what's happening on defense might be the biggest surprise of all. The defensive side of OTAs didn't just reveal a few standouts, it exposed a full-on battle for starting roles, and some names that were once buried on the depth chart are now right in the middle of it. Eric Stokes wasn't supposed to be leading the cornerback unit this early, but that's exactly what happened. While others fought for snaps, he quietly took command with the ones. What makes this surge even more shocking is who he's outperforming. With Darian Porter and Jacorian Bennett both viewed as future stars, it was Stokes who emerged as the one most trusted by the staff. That shift in pecking order says more than any press quote ever could. But it didn't stop there. Darian Porter didn't back down either. He's been everywhere tracking top receivers, locking down in man, and showing off his receiver instincts from his earlier playing days. His agility and football IQ are now undeniable. And right behind him, Jeremy Chin is finding a home in a hybrid role that perfectly fits his skill set. Used like a downhill enforcer, he's playing with the kind of range and control that this defense has lacked. If Pete Carroll's vision includes a Cam Chancellor-type presence, Chin is making his case loud and clear. Even the linebacker room saw a movement that few predicted. Tommy Eichenberg, who came in without much national buzz, is now being talked about as one of the most improved players in camp. His instincts are sharp, his tackling is clean, and he's stepping in with authority every time a rep opens up. There's a real shift happening across this defense, and the old assumptions about roles and rotations no longer apply. It's no longer just about raw talent, it's about who's proving it in front of the coaches right now. And with all this movement, the conversation now turns to a more urgent question. Which players have done enough to secure their roster spots already? Let's find out who's locked in after OTAs. While the battles raged on across the roster, a few players quietly separated themselves from the uncertainty. These are the names that coaches barely need to evaluate anymore, because their actions at OTAs already answered every question. One of the clearest examples is Jacoby Myers. Despite entering a contract year with no extension in place, he showed up, stayed focused, and delivered in every phase. He wasn't just present that was leading. That kind of professionalism doesn't go unnoticed, and it's a big reason why his spot on this team feels untouchable right now. Alex Kappa also made a powerful statement on the offensive line. While others rotated through different units, Kappa was the steady presence at right guard. Reports from inside the building suggest the job is his unless something drastically changes. And beside him, DJ Glaze has built early trust at tackle. Together, they've added stability to a line that's seen too much turnover in recent years. These two didn't just look like starters, they looked like pillars of a new identity. On the other side of the ball, veterans like Max Crosby and Malcolm Koonce are doing what they always do, setting the standard. But even some rookies, like Jack Besh, have now forced their way into that safe zone conversation with consistency and attitude. And then there's the interesting case of Jonah Lalu, who's turning into one of the defense's most underrated pieces. Coaches love his motor, his discipline, and the way he steps up whenever asked. His rise, combined with that of Caleb Rogers on the offensive front, shows how even some of the lesser-known names are locking in spots early. So now it's your turn to weigh in. Who stood out the most to you during Raiders OTAs? Was it a rookie making noise early, a veteran locking in his spot, or someone climbing up from the bottom with something to prove? Drop your take in the comments. And one more thing, what position battle do you think will shock everyone when final cuts are made? Let's see who's really watching closely. If you've been following every detail this offseason, make sure you're subscribed, because the Raiders are just getting started and the story from here is only going to get crazier.